Joins us tonight to assess Dean this time. Great to see you.
Thank you, Tucker. If people missed John Dean yesterday, it might have been because his testimony and that of his fellow witnesses yesterday was knocked off the air by a helicopter crash in New York that killed one person.
Yes.
Otherwise, not that big a story, but big enough to knock John Dean off the air, which gives you an idea of the news value of it. John Dean is, as you pointed out, a convicted felon who did time for obstruction of justice. He wasn't really a Watergate co-conspirator. He was the mastermind. And before he was the Watergate cover-up mastermind, he was also the mastermind of a cover-up of the ITT Dita Beard scandal, which preceded Watergate, a story which I did a lot of work on. And in the course of doing that, the FBI found that this particular memo that set off the whole scandal was authentic. Dean tried to get the FBI to change the letter asserting its authenticity. That is the sort of chap John Dean was, and best we can tell, that's the sort of chap he is. That he would be the star witness in a House hearing about Donald Trump is quite remarkable. But remember, we earlier had a House hearing at which Michael Cohen was the star witness, so I suppose we shouldn't be terribly surprised.
So, do you think Bernie Madoff will be testifying before House Financial Services on investment reform? I mean, I guess what you're saying is it's a little odd to see John Dean giving America lectures about ethics.
Well, yeah, of course it is, and it is a little surprising to me that our colleagues over at CNN have made him a contributor and have him on the air all the time. I mean, I suspect that I'm old enough to have been around during John Dean's heyday as President Nixon's White House counsel and cover-up planner, but it seems to me that a lot of people over at CNN perhaps weren't. But this is not a guy, even though he was able to reduce his sentence, I suppose, by testifying against his boss, who anybody at the time really would have considered a good guy, and least of all an expert on ethics.
So maybe the idea was having someone on CNN's air who could say Trump is worse than Nixon. Maybe that was worth paying him a contributor contract.
Well, saying things are worse than Watergate is something that John Dean has been doing for some time. He said that about George W. Bush. He did. It's what he does. And, I guess he's gotten himself on television doing that. But it doesn't really add up to much of a reason to take him very seriously. And thanks to the helicopter crash, Americans were spared the experience.
It's interesting.